Hello, welcome back, lovers, SOSers. We're here again. We're together.
We're together in the flesh. I hate the word flesh. I've been realizing that over the last 2 days.
I think, did we go over that in one of our, if
No.
you're a real one?
The S word is my least favorite word. SC.
I know what it is.
It's another word. Yeah, the real ones know. Go back and listen. Be loyal fan. Yeah, it's another word for head.
Speaking of... Just kidding. I am so happy to have Jacob Seidman back on the pod, and you guys know him because he's been on one episode.
One episode, yeah.
One episode so far, and we talked about dating, and he's so amazing. He's a brilliant actor and writer, producer, filmmaker. He made this film, Fall to Fame. He writes in it, and he stars in it. And it's won so many awards so far. And it's only 8 minutes. So if you have access to Deku, go online, check it out. It's amazing. DEKKOO. You can get a free trial on Amazon and check it out for 7 days.
Yeah.
So just do that. That's fine.
It is so worth it.
So worth it. It's such an amazing film about artists and relationships.
Yes, and integrity. Yeah. And what you,
Yes.
Oh, it's really important.
So we're gonna interview him and pick his mind about his process over this because it's so good. So enjoy. Yay! Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Welcome back.
Love you.
Thanks for having me back.
You're one of what, 2 or maybe 3 repeat guests? This is a big deal.
Third. He's our third repeat guest.
Third repeat guest.
Marcy Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Out of 60.
I'm very special.
You're very special. And what's so special about this episode specifically is that we're going into your baby, so to speak. A baby that is so fucking good. It's a short film called Fall to Fame. Before I say anything, I want to let you kind of take the reins on what it's about. But it's an amazing film. You have to check it out. So our first question to you, Jacob, how did this film come about, and what is it about?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the introduction and saying all those beautiful things. So what it's about, it's a short film. It's a 9-minute, 8-minute, and 40-second short film. I should plan these things. I say them all the time and then I forget them and I have to refigure out again how I want to put it. Basically, it is about doing whatever it takes to get to the top in the entertainment industry. And is it worthwhile? Is it worth it? Is the sacrifice worth it? And then we show that story through the lens of a love triangle. Mm-hmm. So it is about a character named Will, who is a Grammy-nominated musician. He's at the top of his game, and he's doing a press junket. And his ex, who is a music reporter, comes in to interview him, and it's the first time they've seen each other. Then we flash back to when they were together, when the decision was made, when Will made the decisions that put him where he is in his life now, and we learn that he is now engaged to his manager, the older gentleman who made him famous. So it sort of has I don't want to say Me Too because it's not negative, but it encroaches on the topic of using people of age difference, of
the power dynamic.
Well, it doesn't.
Someone who is experienced in the industry and someone who's a novice in the industry, but not making anybody the bad guy. They both got something out of it.
It's an agreement.
Right? Exactly. It's an
that's
agreement.
The thing. Yeah, because it doesn't explicitly paint it as not negative. It's up for interpretation, which I think is the most beautiful part about it, because especially being an artist and being in LA, trying to do something with your life like that, and in an industry that's so convoluted and twisted, and the deeper you get in, you're like, wow, these people are real messed up, but do I want to be in it, or do I? And so it's the way you told the story, it probably is just based on the lens of who's watching it, because it wasn't forced upon me whether it was a negative thing or not, but I interpreted it as sad But you didn't go into, it doesn't say, like, you, for all you know, it could be the most beautiful, happy relationship, but it's like, it makes your mind work, and you create the same way that like reading a book isn't as a mental exercise, because you are forced to like picture what the characters look like. This was beautiful in that it gave you a story, and then your mind is forced to fill in gaps based on your life
and your perception of it. And I'm glad that you thought that. I'm glad that that's what you picked up on, because it was really important for us to not paint anyone as the villain or the bad guy, because like you said, it could very well be the most perfect situation and relationship or agreement that they have. Really, the question that we wanted to talk about and to ask was, this person made a decision that ultimately they made because it helped their career. And was that worth it? Overall. So that's
so
what it's about.
Yeah. And the way that you're talking about, like, what you didn't want to paint, because no character was painted as a bad guy, like, at all. So it really is just interpretation. It made me think of, I was talking to one of my friends last week about a guy, like, in my mid-20s, this guy that I was not even dating, but, doing stuff with. And I was saying to her, I was like, isn't it sad though? Because he's just like in this situation, even today, I'm like, he's just in this situation that like he's never been into because he wasn't loyal to this person. And this was literally like, 7-8 years ago. And so I'm looking at who I was then, and I feel like I wasn't content where I was, and I wanted more for myself. And therefore what she said to me really shook me up. And what you said reminded me of it. Cause she said, I was like, but how is it? I bet he's just miserable right now. Like, how can you just still be in that situation that you're unhappy with? And she said, you wanted more for yourself, and maybe he doesn't. And I was just like, oh, wow. Like, you really don't realize how much you operate under the assumption. Like, when you're talking about these characters in the movie, like you said, it could be good. Maybe it works for them. And what would work for you doesn't necessarily mean what would work for someone else. And maybe you think it looks awful and I wouldn't want that. And maybe they don't want more for themselves. Maybe that really is what they want.
Right. Or like in the case of the film, success was more important than love, than the relationship at that moment in time. And so that's the decision he made. So I'm glad you got that. It was important for us to have it be, that there be rounded edges to it, that there not be a bad guy, that there not be an angst. We really tailored it, like, even for my character as the ex, who is still looking for some closure, but there's not vindictiveness behind it.
No,
it's just someone who just needs a little bit of closure.
Yeah. And like understanding. And you really, like, in that situation, you're looking at the person like, are you going to buckle down in this decision and double back on it? You really are going to stand for that? Okay. Like, that's all I needed to know. How solid you are in that decision. But is
it interesting from your perspective as a musician and how you view the film?
Yeah, for sure. And I actually wondered about that with acting, because it's such a different world. As much as there are a lot of similarities, it's so different. And yeah, I did think about that a lot, especially with a producer. I know there's equivalence in film, but I really was thinking in music, where it's like, you're literally like, you might write all your music and you're the singer, and you might play you could put on a show by yourself, but you do need a producer when you're going to record it and put it out, and then they do have a say. And like in the movie, in your film, it was like, I think the chorus needs to be a little more like, what if we did it like this? That is what a producer does. And you all know from acting too, you see this all the time. When you work with someone closely in a creative, it's a blurred line. It's not a 9-to-5 corporate job. It's a job, and you're vulnerable and you're ripped open, and it's easy to get close to these people that you're working with. So even the possibility of him falling in love with his producer is realistic, because you're being very vulnerable, but also the like age difference and the power dynamic can be a very negative thing too. But yeah, for music, it did make me like really, it was like flat.
And we wanted to show that in the switch, my friend who wrote the song that he sings, and it's an original song. And my friend Donia Oxford, who wrote it, that was sort of something that she wanted to throw in there. was what, like you said, you can do all the work, but somebody comes in as a producer and manages it or gets credit for it or takes control over it. And it's something that she's experienced a lot in LA in the music industry, of someone taking something and making it poppier.
Exactly.
Or making it more mainstream.
To like, I do R&B obviously, and I had like a whole like a situation with YouTube where they were like, they're ready to go, like, yes, you're great, and then right at the end they're like, I think you should do rock music, and I was like, I'm sorry, what?
You're like, well, that's not what I do.
Okay. It's literally like asking me to, you're great, just speak in Italian.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever will make you money.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's what they want. So, so it sort of, it came out, your part two, I'll do quickly.
Yeah.
It came about truthfully because I was just at a point where I was like, I need footage for my reel. I want to be a lead, and I was like, nobody's casting me as a lead in their film, so I'll just make my own film. Was really what it came out of. It's a completely made up story. None of it is true. I wrote a version of it that was like, what? Sorry, say that again.
But all of it is true.
Yeah, well, it probably is for somebody, but it's not true for me. I wrote a version of it that was like 18 pages, and which is a little bit long for a short film. But I didn't know how to make it. I didn't really have anything that I didn't know how to expand it into a feature. Like, I finished it at 18 pages and I was like, that's the whole story. There's nothing more.
Yeah.
And of course, I wrote it like they're backstage at Staples Center, and there's, entourage, and there's Escalades. And like, I was like, well, now I need $1 million, and it's only 18 pages. And like, I don't know what to do with this. And it sat on my shelf for a year. And a good friend of mine, my friend Ashley Curtis, who is also a brilliant writer, and she helped me take it off the shelf, and she helped me rework it and bounce ideas off with me and rewrite bits of it. So we were really able to bring it down to this, 10 pages and tell the same story with the same characters and the same ideas, but in a condensed, basically it was like, okay, how could we make this ourselves? How could we do this for $0 and get our friends and make this ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's really, and it ended up being more than that. We can talk about that if you want to. But that's where it came from, was I want to be the lead in a movie. I need to have footage for my reel to show that I can do it. How do we make this?
This is like, when it ties, because we're always talking about SOS moments and in our show, and there's endless SOS moments that everyone has in life. And it's almost like this is like a bigger picture one for you, where it wasn't like an event or something happened, but you are looking at your career and being like, I'm being put in this box that I don't want to be in, or I have more to me. And then you take it in your own hands. That's kind of your SOS moment of like, I can control the way that I'm seen and the things that I create. And that it's easier said than done. That takes so much work. And then to actually create something that Alyssa and I both were talking, the last line, the way it cuts, and then the last line, at full chills. I had full chills, and then it's just over. And it's like, how, 8 minutes? Like, what the heck?
So it's so fun. I'm glad you said that, because the last line of and this is, my directors did an interview that's on the Deku Instagram page that I posted for when we launched it a couple weeks ago on Deku. And they talked about it, and it's maybe my favorite piece of how this film got made, because the very last line, the very last cut of the film is not in the script. It was a scene that was taken from somewhere from in the middle of the script that didn't work, and our editor took it and added that 2 seconds onto the end. That was fully Matt McClellan, our editor, who is brilliant. That was a thought, a vision that he had. And when we saw the first cut, we were like, thank you. That's brilliant. Is like
pure artistry. See, that's what people like. It's so easy to close yourself up, especially when it's your idea, your movie, your film, your song, whatever, and you're attached to it and you have people on board, and if you don't remain open to collaborating with other minds, because that can elevate your own vision. And there are ideas that can devalue your vision. But this, for example, like that just came out of obviously your editor cared enough to like invest himself in like, what if we did that? Because you know how many times people get jobs and they do their work, they edit, and they in and out, they get their money, or they do whatever. But to actually be invested and be like, what if this happened, and treat it as though it were their project,
their own. Yeah. And that's what was so amazing about it. I mean, and I'm a collaborative person anyways. Like I mean, you can't do anything on your own, especially in this industry. And especially if you want to make movies or make web, you know, whatever, you can't do it on your own. You need at least friends who are going to help you for, you know, for beer and pizza, you know, if nothing else. And every part of this process was very collaborative. It was an amazing team. And that's like really the cherry on top of the sundae of the brilliant collaborative effort that this film was Matt having this idea and it being perfect.
It is literally a bow on
literally we had 2 directors, a husband and wife, and both of them and myself were like, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
Like it's just
I mean, you did. They just kind of reworked it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So that like they actually were tuned in. That's the magic of working with people who see your vision. Because when you're like with music too, but when it's your thing, but then when someone's suggestion is so in line and actually elevates what you were trying to already say, you know that they're tuned into you and they care and they are right on the same page. And that is really priceless.
Yeah.
Because it was already at that right before that line happened. I already was like, this is impactful. I knew it was about to end. I could like feel it. And I'm like, wow. I was ready to just be like, wow. And then that happened. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like, I can't even. It's so literally so perfect.
It cuts you because, you know, you want so much better for him at the same time, but it's kind of sad because you don't know whether or not he is what if he was happy? Like, what if that was his definition of happiness? What if he was lying to himself?
That's what if he didn't want more for himself? That's why I was saying that. Like, some people just don't, and we can't be the judge. I don't know. And I know this is like, for people who haven't seen the film, they're like, what are you guys talking about?
So go
all
see
the more reason to watch it.
Go watch it.
Well, I'm curious too, like have you always wanted to write? Like what got you into writing? Because I just started writing myself and it's such a weird, but like satisfying and fulfilling thing to do when you're an actor and you have no fucking control over things.
It was, I wouldn't say that starting to write was a full-blown SOS moment for me, but it definitely came out of a frustration. I would, maybe frustration is not the right word, but it came out of a motivation of wanting more, right? Of
like a stagnancy.
Sorry,
like a stagnancy.
Yes, and I mean a bit of frustration, but there's, you know, a lot of times as actors we're sitting around and we're waiting for the audition, we're waiting for the phone to ring, and I'm not patient. A virtue that was not bestowed upon me is patience. And you know, in my acting class, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by a lot of incredible people who were also go-getters, who were creating their own projects and web series. So I was surrounded by this great energy. And again, it came from just the place of, I needed real footage. I needed content, you know. Also, I feel like maybe it's a little bit, well, it's a whole different beast now, but you know, 4 years ago, it was still sort of this idea of, I need content to put on social media because I think having followers helps, but you need to have something to put out. You know, I mean, and this was before TikTok, which I still don't know how to use.
Same, I give up.
So a lot of it came it came from like, okay, I need to have real footage. I need to have social media content and I need to stay busy is really where writing came from. My first piece that I wrote was 2.5 pages, that I drunkenly wrote after I found out that an ex had gotten engaged.
Gut punch.
And and it was really the first thing I'd ever written, and it just kind of poured out. And I grabbed 2 friends, and my friend Mike was in town from New York on tour, and he came over to do it with me. And my friend Ashley stood over us in a bed like this with her camera.
Oh, I saw that.
To get this shot. And it was really just for us. It was just for me to have.
Did you put it out though? Or you showed? I feel like I've seen that.
It's on, it's online. It's on Vimeo.
Yeah.
It's on Vimeo. It's called One Last Chance.
Yes.
And truthfully, I'm very proud of it. I think the writing and the acting, I'm very proud of the writing. We spent zero. There was $0. I think I brought pretzels and snacks from Trader Joe's for the afternoon for everybody, and like grapes. So it was $0. You can tell it's $0. We didn't really know what we were doing in terms of, cinematography. There's no sound, so we didn't have sound equipment. There's no color correcting in the editing. But my friend Donia, who wrote the song for Fall to Fame, I had asked her if she would write or let me use one of her songs as the credits track for the credits in the film, because she has a beautiful song that I thought fit the tone. And then she said, well, why don't I score it? So then she'll have that for her scoring reel. And basically she wrote a beautiful 4-minute score under the piece. We spent a little bit of money to have the sound edited so that it sounded nice. And that elevated the film from, nothing to looking like a real film, which was awesome. And we submitted that to a couple. So that just empowered me overall of like, oh, look how easy this is.
Yeah.
Grab a couple people, grab your team, grab your friends. And it doesn't have to be $1 million, multi-million-dollar production. You just, on a Saturday afternoon, grab a few people and make a movie.
As actors, you guys can both enlighten me because I have no concept. But does it often feel like you literally have to be almost Meryl Streep level to fully choose the roles you play? So basically you're staring down, you hope that you make it, but then you're also staring down the barrel of like years of taking role. Even if you do make it, like, okay, now I'm in this role, I have to do this, I have to put in my time to like get out there. And then when I'm at this level, I can choose, I can either write my own movie, or I'll have the resources and the network, or then I can choose that always intimidated me when I never wanted to act, but when I moved out here, watching friends do it, I'm like, I can write my songs and then go perform them. But you guys have to like be in enough things where you're in auditions where everyone looks like you and says the same lines as you and is the same height and the same hair color, and then you didn't write the film, and it's like, do you feel trapped often? And then like was this a moment of you being like, wait, I can do these things?
I think the biggest thing for me was coming from New York and having done theater my whole life, and having done theater in New York and worked for a theater producer in New York, and seen how I had the opportunity to see how a lot of behind the scenes things worked in that realm, to then move here and grab two friends and pick up a camera and make a movie for $0. That was sort of the light bulb moment of, oh, I don't need $12 million in a theater. Right. We can do this every weekend if we want to. We can have that power. We can be creating our own content. You
can flex those muscles alone.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing. I feel like, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I was going to agree with you completely. And I feel like, to answer your question, it's like, I don't know how you would describe this, your answer, if it's different than mine, but getting into acting, I never wanted to be famous. I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to just have steady work. If I could just have steady
to be a working artist.
To be a working artist, that's fine. You know what I mean? With like, still with anonymity. Oh my God.
Amityville horror.
Amityville. And then, and have a life hopefully outside of that. And I commend you in like, it's so amazing to trust and have confidence in your voice to do that, because it's so hard to do. It's so hard to write. And I tell Molly all the time with the music that she writes, it's just like, it's so vulnerable to write something and also trust in it when you collaborate with others, that they'll see the same thing that you're seeing. So, and how it turns out, it's just so amazing. So you're amazing.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say in terms of voice, it's one of the things I found through this process, through writing a couple different things. And then, what sort of invigorates me, or that I'm passionate about as a writer, that I think both of my two projects that I've created fall into this category of is just making pieces that are about people, not people who are different, right? Both of my projects center around a relationship. We'll save that for a therapy conversation later on. But it provides great fodder for scripts,
It's
so it's
literally
fine.
the source of all human history art.
And really, I want projects to I want anybody to be able to watch it and go, oh, I relate to that, or oh, I relate to that moment, or I relate to that character. And the characters in my pieces just happen to be gay men because I write them for myself, and that's what I know, and that's who I am. But it doesn't need to be. But I want them to be relatable stories about people that anybody could look at and understand.
Yeah. So the highlight of it isn't just, oh, this is a film about a gay guy it's a film about a person who, that's that's really important. And it's interesting. I love that you say that because obviously there's an importance to having films that specifically highlight the gay experience, the Black experience, the female experience, literally anything. But then that's like step one. And then beyond that, people have to then, because people will isolate in their mind like, oh, well, that was that one film about
different.
That one deaf guy. Yeah, exactly. And if you that's the side note, because when I watched your film, nothing about it. Yeah, it's a gay relationship, but it has nothing to do with the story. Like it literally has nothing to do with it. It's a human experience. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask was, maybe you kind of answered it, but what you wanted to get across in the film before you had cast, when you're writing it, are you just like free form writing, or are you like, this is the message I want to get across. Now, how do I articulate this?
It's a mix of both. True. When I write, usually the first draft of things is just free form writing. I just sit down and write. It starts with an idea, and I just sort of go from there, and then I fixate on it, and it sort of kind of writes itself, and then obviously go back and change it and rewrite it and edit. Really, the goal for the writing in this was I need to write myself a role that is my casting, that I could play any day, any audition, I want someone to see it and go, oh, perfect, I can put him in this, and this. That was truly the goal for this. What it became was so much bigger and so much more beautiful and so much better than that. But that was kind of the goal in writing this.
Seeing you in that, what I said to Alyssa too, when we rewatched it today, and I was like, you play, and that was actually before I realized who you were. It was literally you came on screen and I saw you had a suit on and you said one line, but I was like, he plays an executive really well. I could instantly see you in like suits and like literally all these different types of shows that the stuff I had seen of you before, it showed a lot of variation.
Very commanding.
And very convincing though. Yeah, very commanding and just very natural in that role. And I was like, I could see you in like, I was just instantly was thinking of all these TV shows. And so it's really cool because you were able to meet your goal of like expanding your repertoire and what people see of you in your reel, and also get a deeply fulfilling piece of work out there that really moves people. But I really could see you in roles that I had previously from your other projects I hadn't imagined you in.
That was, we had brilliant directors, Brian Suto and Jesse Mills, who were husband and wife, and I loved collaborating with them. And Brian is a writer director. Jesse is a dramaturg director, and so it was really a beautiful relationship creating between the three of us, because Brian helped with rewrites, and then a week before, Jesse's also a brilliant acting teacher, and so a week before we shot, I stepped out of all production meetings. I took off my producer hat and to just focus on being the actor. And Jesse and I worked together a couple times throughout that last week, because I got to a point where I was like, do I have this memorized? Like, we're filming in a week and I wrote it. Like, I should probably learn my lines and stop worrying about schedules and budgets and things like that, which was a good lesson to learn as well. And Jesse really helped me build a beautiful arc in this character, and things that I never even saw or thought of when I was creating it. So again, it goes back to just the collaborativeness of having the right people on your team who have the same vision to help bring it to life.
It's so funny. It's like when you think about, I always thought this was so ironic and ridiculous when I studied music in school, where there's entire courses dedicated to analyzing one Mozart sonata. And you're like, why did he use this note? I literally never could. I wasn't really in classical, but I did have a couple classes that were doing that. And I was like, guarantee you though, Mozart was not sitting there like, I'm going to use this note because it's the fourth removed from the circle of fifths. He literally felt it. Sounds good. He felt it. He did it. And then for centuries, people are spending their entire careers analyzing an artist's work. And so when you write something that you're like, it doesn't make it any less real or valid, the fact that you can't mathematically explain something. It came from, actually, to me, it makes it more valid because it came from like source. You downloaded something, but then you do often need somebody on the outside, like your director, you were saying, or that woman who was like, okay, think about it this way. I see it this way.
Yeah.
You can't, because you were the channel for that. You need somebody else. Yeah.
100%.
And I wonder too, because, the film has been getting so much, deserved attention, awards for the film, for acting, for the cinematography, like all this stuff. Like, has all that feedback and the positive feedback that you've gotten, like, how is that, like, what has that experience taught you as a writer and like a filmmaker going forward, like in other films that you're writing, like things that you're learning in this process?
I think, well, one, not that it's taught me, but one, I'm continually grateful. I mean, every opportunity, every positive feedback, every, festival, every award, every good review. I'm so grateful of people taking the time to watch it, of people giving it a chance, of people taking the time to tell me that they liked it. I think what it's taught me most of all is just to trust myself, just keep doing it. That
that's all there is, right?
You just trust myself and keep doing it. And in some ways it's a little bit of pressure, which for me is good. It's like, okay, I've done this. This was really the first one. It went really well. So now I got to live up to that,
like that sophomore
and be a little bit better next time.
Like albums,
so I have
or
to
like
push myself and work that much harder, which is for me good motivation. Is okay. I learned so much from doing this. And so always for me, really the one of my goals, is, okay, this is where Fall to Fame script started here and it ended here for the shoot script. So the next script I write, I need to take all those things I learned through the rewrite process and everything we did, and my next script can start here.
Exactly. Like the best way to advance and move forward is you only compete with yourself.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying,
and surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Exactly. Run with the wolves that are faster than you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about like you writing this, like from your perspective as a gay man and as a gay couple, but the movie's about a human experience. But when you were I don't know if shopping's the right term, but when you were going around festivals and stuff like that, and you're pitching this movie to different, maybe Deku or other services, did you find it hard to not kind of stick to that niche in your elevator pitch of the movie, right? Like, is it hard to sell something that's like LGBTQ centered? Right. Did you find that difficult?
I did, but I think for a different reason maybe than expect, or a different reason than even I expected. I don't know this for fact. This is my guess and interpretation of things, right? But the film was actually not accepted into a single LGBTQ festival.
Really interesting.
The film did really well in mainstream festivals that weren't niche specific. I shouldn't say that were not non-niche specific festivals.
Which actually proves that you accomplished what you were trying to accomplish.
Which was great. And I don't know why. I've learned throughout this process of doing film festivals, because for those of you out there who are filmmakers, the film festival process is a beast of its own. And I learned a lot going through that. And so I, now in hindsight realize that like maybe it didn't get accepted into festivals solely because the profile I made for it wasn't as good as the film was. Right. So that I'll blame myself. Number one, those of you who are filmmakers out there, make a good, nice profile with a nice poster and a nice trailer for your film so that people will actually take the time to watch it. But the other part of me wonders, maybe this is controversial, but it's not about it's like you said, it's about a human, like we said, it's a human experience. It's not a very queer film.
It doesn't highlight a gay relationship at all.
It may not have been, gay enough. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right thing to say, but you can edit. We can edit that out.
I know what you're saying though. It's like, so I don't know. That's in people's
totally
perspective.
My speculation. I have no idea if that's true or not. But that's a thought I've had.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I don't have any validation or qualifications to say this, but just from a viewer who I literally just came at it. I'm not judging an LGBTQ film festival or any film festival. And that was literally like the most afterthought, which is what you described that you wanted. Cause it's like, you want to normalize these relationships. Right. And the only way to do that is to not focus on they're gay. It's like, they're just people. So actually it might be.
And like you said before, those are extremely important stories to share as well.
Yes.
And so there might be a lot of places that are looking to highlight those stories.
Right.
Which is then why this one didn't. Listen, I mean, I'll justify it up and down in every which way all day long.
No, but that makes sense though, as a viewer,
it doesn't. But
it didn't come across to me. That wasn't highlighted at all. But I think that is the important, like we said, there's a place for both. You need both types of films, and you really do need your type of film to normalize in society. People watch it and they forget that they're watching a gay couple. That is also important because otherwise people are hung up on things.
Hung up on stereotypes, hung up on, and this is what I have I mean, like like you said, there's so many important stories to be told when it comes to telling stories that are gay enough, telling stories that are Black enough, telling stories that are, I think oftentimes writers get stuck in oppression Olympics when they're trying to tell very specific stories and specific lives. You don't want to, tell the I don't know, the darkness of it and making it a thing of instead of highlighting actual love. You know what I mean? That is,
also like a weird angle. Yeah. And a weird angle to it also is that oftentimes, if there's a movie like, actually I don't know for sure with Green Book, but like, for example, you're talking about the Black experience in America. A lot of these movies that made it big, it's a white director, white, right? So it's like at the end of the day, if you are a gay man producing this film and there's a gay couple in the film, you are giving it the dimension that you wish it had in a lot of other films where it's like you said, there's a place for films that highlight that. Of course, it's important. And there's an equally important place for these films where, okay, this isn't like a straight cis man like writing a film that's like, I want to make sure people understand that these are gay people and they're just like us. It's like
they could be writing it from their perspective of like guilt,
and it could be well intentioned, but at the same time, like I love this because you just take, like, I don't like straight people don't walk down the street and announce that they're straight all the time. So like, can I just write a film and like, this is the boyfriend I had in the film? It's fine. you know?
And, it all happens for a reason because there were quite a few festivals that like, yes, would that have been amazing? Would that have been amazing?
Of course.
Right. But it all happens for a reason. And we premiered it here last February. Alyssa, you were there, right before the pandemic hit at the Michaud Festival in LA, which was great to have it premiere in LA. And the Michaud Festival was the perfect, you talk about a festival that curated a beautifully diverse selection to show of material. And I was just there for their festival this past year and they did the same thing again, a beautifully diverse selection of material to show. So, and they're incredible people. So, it all happens the way it's supposed to.
Yeah,
it does.
Do you have any advice to filmmakers that are writing films, whether, maybe they're struggling with like, trying to tell every aspect of their experience or just plainly the human experience? Do you have any advice to filmmakers?
Or feeling like they have to speak for an entire demographic of people?
Yeah. And entering into the film or the festival world.
6 questions in one, Jacob. Let's go.
Be true to yourself. On one hand, write what you know. Again, this film was made up. Although, as I worked on it with our director before we filmed, and we got into the root and the core of what this relationship was and what my character was really saying, and I was like, I got this. I know exactly what's going on here. So write what you know, or write what you know expanded, write what you know turned.
What you feel.
But and trust that you know what you're talking about.
Yes.
But just write, just do it, just let it flow. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. It won't be anything perfect the first time. And most of all, ask for help. I mean, that's the biggest thing is I oftentimes am working on a couple projects right now. And one in particular, I said to my manager when we were talking last week, and I said, I've taken this as far as I know how to take it right now. I need help. I need someone to come in and poke holes in it or help me take it. It's plateaued. I don't know how to take it past this.
Yes.
I need help.
Like the whole write what you know, and there's like 2 schools of thought, and I understand, like, you want to come from authenticity, and I'm always thinking along the lines of music and like especially rappers and like lyricists in general, whatever kind of music you're writing, but rap gets a lot, they're scrutinized more about like the street cred and the legitimacy of what they're saying. And the amount of times that I have written a song, I swear to God, I've written so many times, written something and been like, and it's coming out and I feel it and it's beautiful, it's poetic, and I'll be like, I don't really know what I'm talking about right now. Like I know what I'm writing about, but I'm not channeling something I've been through. And what you said, Jacob, where you were like, you learn to trust yourself, because the amount of times that has happened, I'll write something and it'll be a beautiful song and I'm like, it's a cool song. If someone asks me what it was about, I don't have a past relationship that this was about. And then 2-3 years later, I listen to it and I'm like, oh my God, this is my life right now. And the amount of times that has happened, I will write a song and a year, even 6 months, but even up to like 5 years later, I listen to it and it's like it was a premonition. It's like I was writing, and that's what has taught me, like, okay, whatever comes to you, and you don't have
like
to justify.
You said before, it's coming out of something authentic. It's something coming from. So whether you know it or not,
right? And you don't have to justify why you said this then or what came out. It's literally like, this is humanity. I'm a human. This is it's coming out of me. And then even later or Jacob, like when someone's directing you and saying like, oh, you're playing this role now that you wrote, but as they're explaining it to you, you are then being like, wow, like this has more depth, and it came out of you. I wrote that? Yes, exactly. But like I would listen to songs I wrote and be like, oh my God, that was so true. And I didn't know what I was writing about, but it just came out, but you're trusting yourself.
And it doesn't have to be, I mean, in the vein of advice, whatever, it doesn't have to be, I've written projects that are completely made up, scenes that are completely made up, but they're based off a joke that I make all the time, so it's like, I still know it. I still know what it feels like to want that or to laugh about that. Or so, I don't have to actually have lived it, but I know how to start it. I know how to step into it. And then from there, it grows.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just putting yourself in more of a box and you're starting to like, I have to have, what did I go through? If you limit, there's I think it was Joan Didion. There's a quote, the writer, the author, and she says, if I even halfway understood my own thoughts, I wouldn't have to write. So like if I knew what I was thinking, I would not be a writer. So why are you asking me what I'm thinking? Like that's why I write.
Yep.
And it was it was beautiful because it's like she's considered a classic and iconic, and that's why we write. That's why we create.
I think for us, I mean, that's why we're so lucky as artists, as writers, as musicians, as you're writing your own music, because we have a way to channel things, right? The majority of people, I mean, thank God therapy is normalized now and like almost everybody goes, but like normal people don't have a way to express themselves. Right. And that's why I'm so grateful as artists. And I'm grateful that I found this outlet, that I found this love and ability and confidence in the creation of something from scratch, because now I have an outlet. Whenever I have something going on, I can just sit down and write about it. And even if it just gets thrown away, at least I've processed it.
The amount of time, because the amount of times, our brains process, like you can have so many thoughts in a second that you verbally couldn't get through in 1 second. Like your brain moves faster than words are able to, or like you can speak or explain. And if you don't ever take the time to slow yourself down when you are writing out, like keeping a journal, I have a million thoughts in a moment, but if I'm forcing myself to write down what I'm thinking, by the time I finish that page, I am learning about myself. Because if you don't take the time to slow down and write what you're thinking and force yourself to form full sentences, you know how many times we think in half sentences where it's like, I should have, but I didn't. Oh, but I should have. It's like our whole day goes by like that. But if you write it down, you learn everything about yourself. And like, that's what this is. I love that you did this and you it's outworking of you.
Yeah. We're so proud of you, Jacob.
Thank you.
So proud of you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making this film. We're going to shout out everywhere you can find this film after these messages.
I was going to say, do we have messages?
Yeah, can I get paid for doing the voiceover for your messages?
After these short messages.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for shouting out. Thank you for letting me talk about it. Thank you for wanting to hear me talk about it.
Yes.
I love you both. I appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for letting me share my work.
The pleasure is ours. We love you.
We love you.
I love you both.
Wow. The amount of cheers
to Jacob.
Do we drink now? The amount of depth that you can squeeze into 8 minutes. This film is 8 minutes long, and it instantly it takes you on an entire journey into an entire world in 8 minutes, and you come away. And I know it hits us as artists, especially artists in LA, harder. You come out here to pursue something, and there's all of these promises and all of these shiny things and all these people that are promised, especially as a woman. Like you and I both know, but the amount of things that are just promised and dangled in front of you, and the path that so many people go down, they have good intentions and good hearts and even good heads on their shoulders, and something goes wrong, and this film illuminates a lot of the various paths you could take.
Yeah, and I'm so glad he was here to talk about it more. And I always think about that, that last line.
That's my favorite. The ending of it is just it hurts. I really it. It just honestly watching it and right at that very last line, I got chills just from that line. So
it stings.
It was good.
It stings.
So for this episode, we want to shout out for our charity nonprofit GLAAD, GLAAD. GLAAD rewrites the script for LGBTQ acceptance. As a dynamic media force, GLAAD tackles tough issues to shape the narrative and provoke dialogue that leads to cultural change. GLAAD protects all that has been accomplished and creates a world where everyone can live the life they love. GLAAD works through entertainment, news, and digital media to share stories from the LGBTQ community. I just spit all over my iPad. Okay. Digital media to share stories from the LGBTQ community that accelerate acceptance. So to learn more and donate, please visit GLAAD.org, and that's with 2 A's, GLAAD.
Fuck yeah. Shout out GLAAD. Shout out Jacob.
Shout out BlackLivesMatter.com.
Hell yeah. And yeah, again, go on Deku, DEKKOO. You can get a free trial on Amazon now and check out this film. It's amazing. Fall to Fame. Jacob Seidman. He's amazing. Follow us on at the SOS Pod. Was I going to forget our fucking Instagram handle? Come on now.
Yes, at the SOS Pod. I do also want to shout out Jacob's social media.
Yes.
His Instagram is at JHSEIDMAN.
So follow him. Give him some love.
Yes. Write us reviews. Is that what you're going to say?
Please rate us, review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people.
Yes. It really
we're
does.
on Patreon.
Yeah, we're on Patreon. So you can help us grow our baby pod by donating $3 a month, $7 a month, or $11 a month. Literally nothing less than your Netflix and your Hulu shit, you know. Just log into your ex-boyfriend's Netflix and give us that $11 a month.
Just you won't know.
Or $3.
And shout out to Steve and Nija for being our amazing patrons.
Yes, and I am Molly Cottrell.
And I'm Melissa Rosado.
And here's to turning meltdown
into magic.